All right, let's try and untangle this incredibly complex web of conflict we're seeing in the Middle East. It's a story that goes back 100 years, a story of empires, of deception, and a whole network of military bases that has shaped and continues to shape the entire region. So let's get into it.
So, here's the question on everyone's mind right now. If Iran's main fight is with the US and Israel, why are its missiles landing in places like Kuwait, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia? It just doesn't seem to add up, right? But the answer? Well, it changes how you see the entire conflict.
Iran's position, at least the one they state publicly, is pretty direct. They say, look, we're not targeting our neighbors. We're targeting the American military hardware that's sitting on their land. And that, of course, just opens up an even bigger question. How in the world did all those bases get there to begin with?
To really get what's happening now, we have to rewind the clock. I'm talking way back, to the end of World War I, and the moment the last great Islamic superpower crumbled.
So, boom, the Ottoman Empire collapses after centuries of rule, and it leaves behind this enormous power vacuum. And guess who was ready and waiting to fill it? The British Empire and its allies, who quickly moved in to take control of all that land and all those resources.
Now here's where things get really clever. The British knew that the local Arab populations would never, ever accept a British guy as their king. So they came up with this secret plan for indirect rule. They let the Arab kings keep their titles. They told them, hey, you're still in charge of day-to-day stuff, building roads, running the cities, but the real power, all the military, all the defense, that was kept firmly in British hands.
And what this strategy created, effectively, were puppet states. On the surface, they look like independent Arab kingdoms. But in reality, the real decisions, the ones that mattered, were being controlled by the British through their network of military bases. It was a masterclass in the illusion of power.
So, this setup, it actually stays in place for decades. But then another world war comes along, and it just completely flips the global chessboard, making way for a brand new player.
You see, World War II absolutely gutted the British economy. They just couldn't afford to maintain this massive global empire anymore. So as Britain started pulling back, a new superpower was rising and ready to step in, the United States. And the Arab leaders, seeing which way the wind was blowing, started taking meetings with American officials.
But this wasn't some smooth handover. The first American bases were small, mostly there to protect oil interests, and they got a lot of pushback. The sources really highlight Saudi Arabia's King Faisal, who actually kicked the American bases out of his country. For a minute there, it looked like American expansion in the region had hit a brick wall.
But after King Faisal was assassinated, that resistance kind of fizzled out. And according to the source material we're covering, America was just waiting for the perfect excuse to build a massive permanent military presence. And that excuse? It came in the form of one man, Saddam Hussein.
Now, what's ironic is that Saddam started out as a close ally to both the US and the Arab monarchs. They actually encouraged him to attack Iran. But after a brutal 8-year war, he was left with a staggering $60 billion in debt, owed mostly to his Arab neighbors. And when they came asking for their money back, he just said no. And that created a huge problem.
The tension really boiled over when Kuwait started pumping more oil, which tanked the price and crushed Iraq's economy. Saddam decided he was going to invade, but first he needed to know what the US would do. So he meets with the American ambassador, and according to the source, he's basically given a green light. The message was clear. This is an Arab-Arab conflict, and we're staying out of it.
So, thinking he had the all clear, Saddam invaded. And it took him just 2 days. The entire country of Kuwait fell. Suddenly, Saddam was one of the most powerful men in the Arab world. But this is where the trap was allegedly sprung.
Okay, so get this. This is the alleged playbook. The US, which had just promised to stay out of it, suddenly did a complete 180. The source claims they secretly showed Saudi and other Arab leaders falsified satellite images, fake intelligence, suggesting Saddam was about to invade them next. They were terrified. They asked America for help, and the US said yes. But there was one condition. They had to allow huge, permanent American military bases on their soil. And the kings, feeling trapped, agreed.
And boom, just like that, the US wasn't just visiting anymore. They were moving in, for good. Massive bases were built across Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, and the UAE. And for the next few decades, they would become the absolute backbone of American power in the Middle East.
And make no mistake, these bases were not just sitting there collecting dust. We're talking about the launch pad for the invasion of Afghanistan, the launch pad for the second invasion of Iraq, the one that toppled Saddam himself. They were used for bombing campaigns in Syria, for operations in Libya. They were the command center for projecting U.S. military power across the entire region.
And according to the sources we're explaining today, this power is also used to protect key allies. A perfect example they give is when the Houthis in Yemen started attacking ships bound for Israel. It was from these very same bases that the U.S. launched strikes to put a stop to it.
Okay, so that's 100 years of history. How does all this lead to the headlines we're seeing right now? Well, for 40 years, this network of bases has been pretty much untouchable. But now, for the very first time, a regional power is hitting back, directly and repeatedly.
And this table really illustrates what's been happening. Iran is claiming its strikes have been incredibly precise and, well, incredibly damaging. They say they've had a huge U.S. warehouse for tanks and missiles in Kuwait, taken out a large refueling jet in Iraq, destroyed a radar system in Qatar reportedly worth over $1 billion, and even destroyed 5 large U.S. aircraft in Saudi Arabia.
And the tactics they're reportedly using are pretty sophisticated. It's like a 1-2 punch. First, they'll launch a huge wave of maybe 50 or 60 drones. Now, the goal of these drones isn't necessarily to hit anything, it's just to get the U.S. defense systems to light up, to distract them, to get them totally overwhelmed. And then, while all that chaos is happening, they fire the real weapon, hypersonic missiles that are just too fast for the occupied defenses to handle.
So you can see, this isn't just about missiles and drones. This is a massive information war too. When things are exploding, it becomes almost impossible to know for sure who is responsible for what. And according to the sources we're looking at today, that confusion might be part of the strategy.
This is where things get even murkier. The source material claims this confusion isn't an accident, it's being manufactured. It reports that authorities in both Qatar and Saudi Arabia have actually arrested Mossad agents who were allegedly planning false flag attacks. The goal, according to this account, was to have these attacks blamed on Iran, to stir up old Shia-Sunni divisions, and to keep the region fractured.
And all of this brings us back to what, from Iran's point of view, is the single root cause of this entire conflict. Their supreme leader has put it in very stark terms. For them, the instability, the attacks, the whole thing, it all comes down to the presence of these foreign fortresses. And his message is clear: as long as they remain, this conflict is destined to continue.